Deployments were never easy, but I always thought they were harder on her than on me. Being thousands of miles away, I figured I had it simple: wake up, train, do my job, and count the days until I got to go home. Meanwhile, Ashley was left behind. She had the house, the bills, the stress of handling everything alone while raising our daughter, Mia, 5. That's why I never doubted her. I never once thought she'd betray me. Every letter, every video call, every message she sent while I was deployed made me believe we were still us. She told me she missed me, that she couldn't wait to have me home again, that Mia asked about me every night. That I held on to those words, but now, looking back, they were just lies, because while I was overseas, Ashley was sleeping with someone else and I had no idea. Not yet. That I don't know exactly when it started. Maybe before my last deployment. Maybe while I was thousands of miles away, trusting her with everything. But the first crack in our perfect little story came about 2 months before I came home. Ashley had always been consistent with her messages. She sent me long emails, voice notes, little pictures of Mia at school or playing in the backyard. It was the only thing keeping me sane out there. But then, things started to change. Messages got shorter. Instead of paragraphs about how much she missed me, I'd get, busy day, love you. Calls became less frequent. She'd send a text saying, bad signal today, babe. We'll talk tomorrow. And the worst part? She stopped saying, I miss you, altogether. At first, I told myself it was stress. She was raising our daughter alone, paying bills, keeping everything together. Of course, she was overwhelmed. But then came the excuses. I remember calling one night. She picked up, but her voice was rushed, nervous. Hey. Can I call you back? I'm at dinner with some friends. Friends? I asked. She rarely went out. Yeah, just trying to stay social. Don't worry, it's just the girls. I forced a laugh. Alright, enjoy. Love you. She hesitated. A tiny pause. Then, love you too. It was off. I shook it off, but deep down, something didn't feel right. Fast forward 2 months, the plane landed. Boots hit the ground. I was home. I had dreamed of that moment. The embrace at the airport, the rush of emotions, Ashley and Mia running into my arms. But when I stepped off that plane, Ashley wasn't even there. My mom was waiting with Mia instead. I dropped my bag and hugged my little girl, burying my face in her hair. Where's mommy? My mom's smile faltered. She had something come up. Said she'd see you at home. Something come up. After 8 months apart, I felt my stomach twist, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I smiled at Mia and told her I missed her. But in the back of my mind, something was screaming at me that something was very, very wrong. I walked through the front door and immediately felt it. The house wasn't right. Ashley was in the kitchen, pouring wine into a glass. She barely glanced up when I walked in. No rush to hug me. No running into my arms. Just a quick smile and a, hey, babe. Welcome home. I frowned. That's it? She blinked. What do you mean? I dropped my duffel bag. 8 months, Ashley. I haven't seen you in 8 months. She let out a nervous laugh. I know. Sorry, Mia was fussy earlier, and I was exhausted. I nodded slowly. Maybe she was tired. Maybe I was reading too much into it. But then I looked down at the table. 2 wine glasses. 1 in front of her. The other half emptied. I glanced back at her. Had company? Ashley's eyes widened. Just for a split second. Oh, yeah. Jenna stopped by. We had a little catch-up session. Something about the way she said it made my skin crawl. I knew she was lying. I just didn't know why. Not yet. I told myself to let it go. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe I had been gone so long that I was reading into things that weren't there. But my gut wouldn't let it go, and I should have trusted it. That first night back, I lay in bed next to Ashley, staring at the ceiling. I could feel the distance between us. It wasn't just physical, it was something deeper. I reached over, ran my fingers down her arm, trying to reconnect. She tensed, not subtly. Not like she was half asleep. She went rigid. I pulled my hand back. Ashley, what's going on? She exhaled sharply. Nothing. I'm just tired, Mike. Tired after 8 months apart. She rolled onto her side, away from me. I lay there, my heart pounding, a sick feeling settling into my stomach. Something was wrong. The next morning, Ashley was already up before me. I walked into the kitchen, where she was making coffee, scrolling on her phone. She barely looked up. Morning. Morning, I muttered. You sleep okay? She shrugged. Yeah. You? I watched her. The way she was avoiding eye contact. The way she was too casual. Then I remembered the wine glasses from last night. I leaned against the counter. Hey, how's Jenna doing? Ashley blinked. What? I kept my expression neutral. You said she came over last night. Just wondering how she's been. There was a pause. Just for a second. Then she plastered on a smile. Oh, you know, same old. Work, life. She's been busy. I nodded. Yeah. That's funny. Her grip on her coffee mug tightened. Why? I shrugged. Because I texted her this morning. Said it was good she stopped by. She had no idea what I was talking about. Silence. Ashley's face drained of color. Then, she recovered fast. Oh. I meant I was on the phone with her. You probably misunderstood. She was lying. I didn't know why yet, but I was about to find out. That afternoon, Ashley went to run errands. The moment she was gone, I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I went through her phone. I hated myself for it. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to find nothing, but then I found something. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again, Ashley. Me too. My hands went ice cold. My vision blurred with rage. I scrolled up, heart pounding. More messages. Dozens. Ashley, you're so much better than him. I can't stop thinking about you. Unknown. Then leave him already. You know you want to. I gritted my teeth, my breath coming in sharp bursts. I had my proof. Ashley had been cheating on me. While I was risking my life for our family, she was sleeping with someone else, and she had been planning to leave me. She just didn't expect me to find out first. I sat there, gripping Ashley's phone, my heart pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. She cheated. I had seen it with my own eyes. The messages, the emojis, the words that burned into my brain like a brand. You're so much better than him. I can't stop thinking about you. Then leave him already. You know you want to. My hands were shaking. Part of me wanted to throw the phone against the wall. Another part wanted to punch the nearest object, but I did neither. Instead, I took a deep breath, placed the phone back exactly how I found it, and waited. Ashley had no idea I knew, and I was going to make sure she had no way to talk her way out of this. Ashley walked through the front door an hour later, carrying shopping bags. She glanced at me on the couch, completely unaware that her world was about to shatter. Hey, she said casually, setting the bags down. You okay? You look kind of tense. I took a deep breath. Stay calm. Who is he? I asked, my voice cold. Ashley froze mid-step, her expression flickered confusion, then fear. But she masked it fast, giving me a nervous laugh. Who is who? I stood up slowly, my eyes never leaving hers. The guy you've been texting. The one who's so much better than me. The one you can't stop thinking about. Her face drained of color. I watched as she struggled to keep her composure. The gears were turning in her head. Ashley swallowed hard. Mike. I don't know what you think you saw, but I cut her off. I saw everything. Don't lie to me. She inhaled sharply, then suddenly switched tactics. It was just texting, she blurted out, her voice desperate. I swear, it didn't mean anything. I was lonely while you were gone, and I made a mistake, but it was just words. I laughed bitterly. Just words? Then why did he say, last night was amazing? Got her. Ashley's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She had no excuse that I stepped closer, my hands clenched at my sides. So tell me again, Ashley. Who is he? She looked away, her breathing uneven. Then, finally, she whispered, his name is Jake. Jake. The name hit me like a brick, not just any Jake. Jake Matthews. My best friend. My closest brother in arms. The guy who had written to me while I was deployed, cracking jokes about how he'd keep an eye on Ashley. For me. He had been keeping an eye on her, all right. In our bed. I took a step back, feeling like I had been punched in the gut. Jake? You've been sleeping with Jake? Ashley winced. Mike, how long? I cut her off, my voice deadly calm. She hesitated. Then, in the smallest voice, she said, 6 months. 6 months. I was in a war zone, riding home, missing my family, while she was screwing my best friend. My vision went red. Ashley took a step toward me. Mike, please, I never meant to. I held up a hand. Don't. She shut her mouth. I stared at her, feeling something inside me snap, whatever love I had left for this woman. It was gone. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Ashley panicked. Where are you going? I turned, my face unreadable. To find Jake. She rushed forward, grabbing my arm. Mike, please don't do this. It was a mistake. I love you. I yanked my arm free, disgusted. No, Ashley. You love yourself. And with that, I walked out the door, knowing one thing for sure: this wasn't over. I drove straight to Jake's house. My hands were gripping the wheel so tight I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. My best friend. My brother in arms. The man I trusted with my life, and all this time, he was sleeping with my wife. When I pulled up outside his house, his truck was in the driveway. Good. He was home. I slammed the car door and marched up to the front porch, my heart pounding. I didn't knock. I pounded on the door. Seconds later, it swung open. Jake stood there, barefoot, wearing a t-shirt and gym shorts. His face went pale. Mike, he said, blinking like he had just seen a ghost. I didn't waste time. How long? I asked, my voice like steel. Jake's mouth opened and closed. What? Don't play dumb, I snapped. I know. Ashley told me everything. His entire body stiffened. Mike, man, let's talk about this. I punched him. My fist slammed into his jaw, sending him stumbling backward into the house. He groaned, gripping his face. Jesus Christ, man. I stepped inside, slamming the door behind me. You were supposed to be my brother. You wrote to me. You pretended to be my friend. And all along, you were screwing my wife. Jake wiped blood from his lip, looking at me like a trapped animal. I swear, Mike, it wasn't planned. 6 months, Jake. I roared. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. He shook his head. I didn't mean to hurt you, man. I let out a bitter laugh. You didn't mean to? Then why didn't you stop? Jake swallowed hard. She told me things, Mike. She said you were distant. That you stopped loving her. I stared at him, stunned. She told you that? He nodded, and suddenly, it clicked. Ashley played us both. She fed Jake lies. She convinced him I was the problem. That she was the victim and Jake? He was too much of a weak, selfish coward to see through it. I took a step back, shaking my head. You're pathetic, I said, my voice low. You were supposed to be my friend. But you let her turn you into her plaything. Jake's face crumpled. Mike, please. I turned my back on him, because he wasn't worth another second of my time. I got back in my car and just sat there. I had two choices: stay with Ashley. Try to fix something that was already dead, walk away and take back control of my life. It wasn't even a choice. I knew what I had to do. I pulled out my phone and dialed my lawyer. "Hey, Mike," he answered. "What's up?" I took a deep breath, my grip tightening on the wheel. "I need to file for divorce. Today." Filing for divorce felt like ripping off a bandage that had been stuck to an open wound for too long. The moment I hung up with my lawyer, I felt lighter. Like I could finally breathe again. But I wasn't naive. Ashley wasn't going to let go that easily. I pulled into the driveway, mentally preparing myself for whatever storm was waiting inside, and sure enough, she was waiting. Ashley stood in the living room, her arms crossed, her eyes red like she had been crying, but I knew her, those weren't real tears, she was preparing to manipulate. "Where were you?" she asked, her voice soft, controlled. "I went to see Jake," I said, keeping my voice calm. Ashley tensed. "Mike, I told you," I held up a hand. "Don't. Just stop lying." She flinched, then she let out a shaky breath. Okay, I made a mistake. But do you really want to throw away our family over this?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You threw it away, Ashley," I said. "Every time you texted him. Every time you let him touch you. You made this choice, not me." She stepped closer. "Mike. I still love you," she whispered. I stared at her, unblinking. "You don't love me, Ashley. You just don't want to lose the life I gave you." She gasped like I had slapped her, then the switch flipped, the fake sadness vanished, replaced by cold fury. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "You think you can just walk away from me?" I met her glare, unshaken. "Watch me." Ashley didn't waste time. Within 24 hours, she lawyered up. Within 48 hours, she was making demand money, the house, Mia. She wasn't trying to save our marriage anymore. She was trying to take me down, but she underestimated me, because I was ready to fight back, and this time, she wasn't going to win. I sat across from my lawyer, John Carter, in his office, hands clenched into fists. "She wants full custody of Mia," he said, flipping through the papers Ashley's lawyer had sent over. "And she's asking for the house and spousal support." I clenched my jaw. "So she cheats on me, lies for months, and now she thinks she gets to take everything?" John smirked. "She can ask for whatever she wants. Doesn't mean she'll get it." I took a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "What are my chances?" He leaned back in his chair. "Honestly? Better than hers. You've got a stable career, no history of misconduct, and most importantly we have proof she was unfaithful. Judges don't like parents who prioritize their affairs over their kids." I nodded. "So what do we do?" John's expression hardened. "We go on offense." And that's exactly what we did. The first court hearing was a disaster for Ashley. She came in acting like the perfect, heartbroken wife. She sobbed about how she had been neglected, and how she only wanted what was best for Mia. Her lawyer tried to paint me as an absent husband, who chose work over family. Then John dropped the bombshell that we presented screenshots of Ashley's messages to Jake, bank statements proving she had spent money on hotels while I was deployed, and the worst part? A text where she admitted she thought about leaving me for Jake. The judge's expression changed immediately. Ashley's fake tears dried up real fast, her lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Your Honor, these messages are being taken out of context," the judge cut him off. "Mrs. Dawson, were you engaged in an extramarital affair while your husband was deployed?" Ashley hesitated. Just for a second, then, she mumbled, "Yes." Boom, that hesitation. That moment of truth. It was enough. The judge saw right through her. Outside the courthouse, Ashley was furious. She stormed up to me, her eyes blazing. "You think you won? This isn't over, Mike." I stared at her, completely calm. "It is for me." She huffed and crossed her arms. "I'll find a way to get what I deserve." I smirked. "You already did. You deserve Jake." That shut her up. She stood there, fists clenched, jaw tight, but she had nothing left to say, because she knew it. She lost. John walked up beside me. She's not gonna make this easy. I don't care, I said. I just want my daughter. And I was going to make sure Mia stayed with me. Ashley had already betrayed me once, that I wasn't letting her take my kid. 2. The divorce was one thing. The fight for Mia was another. Ashley didn't care about me anymore, but she cared about winning. And since she lost in court, she did what selfish people always do. She used our daughter as a weapon. That I got the official notice a week after our last hearing. Ashley was fighting for full custody. John, my lawyer, sighed as he read the documents. She's claiming you're emotionally unstable because of your military service. I froze. Emotionally unstable? Ashley was actually trying to use my service against me. She's pushing the dangerous veteran stereotype, John continued. Implying you might have PTSD, that your job made you distant from your child. She's twisting your deployment into abandonment. I gritted my teeth. So let me get this straight. I fought for this country, came home, found out my wife was screwing my best friend, and now I'm the bad guy. John nodded grimly. That's what she's banking on. I saw red. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about Mia. And I wasn't about to let Ashley use my child to hurt me. We needed proof that Mia was better off with me. So we gathered character statements from my commanding officers and family, proving I was a stable, loving father, records showing Ashley's neglect, like all the time she left Mia with babysitters while she was with Jake, financial records proving I could provide a better home. Ashley thought she could use my past against me. She forgot who she was dealing with the day of the custody hearing. Ashley walked in confident. She played the role of a loving mother perfectly until John stood up and presented our evidence. Her fake tears gone, her lawyer tried to pivot. Mrs. Dawson is a dedicated mother. She simply wants what's best for her child. John pounced. Your Honor, if she wanted what was best, would she have left her daughter with babysitters while she spent nights in hotels with her lover? Ashley's face drained of color. The courtroom went silent. The judge sighed. He glanced between us, then finally spoke. I've made my decision. I held my breath as the judge read the ruling. Given the evidence presented, primary custody will remain with Mr. Dawson. Mrs. Dawson will receive visitation rights. Ashley gasped. That I closed my eyes and let out a slow breath. I won, not just the divorce. Not just the truth. I won my daughter. Ashley stood there, completely shattered. I turned to Mia and smiled. We're going home, sweetheart. She wrapped her little arms around my neck, and for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. I thought the fight was over. I thought winning custody of Mia would finally put an end to Ashley's games. I was wrong, because when a manipulative person starts losing control, they do the only thing they know how to do. They try to destroy everything around them. And Ashley? She was desperate. It started 2 days after the ruling. I was making breakfast when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown, you think you won, huh? This isn't over. I knew exactly who it was. I sighed and typed back. Me. It is over, Ashley. Move on. A minute later, another text. Ashley, you took everything from me. I'll make you pay. I stared at the screen, shaking my head. She was spiraling, but I didn't realize just how far she'd go until she made her next move. That night, I got a call from Child Protective Services. Ashley had reported me. She claimed I was neglecting Mia. That I was unstable and unfit to be a parent. That my military trauma made me a danger to my own child. It was all lies, but CPS had to investigate. Within an hour, I had a caseworker knocking on my door. I let them in. Showed them everything: Mia's clean room, her school records, proof that she was happy and well taken care of. Mia even smiled at the caseworker and said, I love living with Daddy. The caseworker nodded. I don't see any concerns here. Ashley's plan failed. The case was dismissed within 48 hours, but the damage was done. She had gone too far, and I knew I needed to end this for good. John, my lawyer, didn't waste time that we went back to court with one final request: restrict Ashley's visitation rights. That we presented her false CPS report as evidence. We showed her threatening messages. We proved that she was willing to lie and manipulate the system just to hurt me. The judge was done with her. His ruling: Ashley's visits with Mia would now be supervised. Her power gone, her games over. As we left the courthouse, Ashley looked at me, her face pale and empty. "You really hate me, don't you?" she whispered. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I shook my head. "No, Ashley. I just finally see you for who you are." She had destroyed our marriage, she had tried to take my daughter, but in the end, she lost everything, and I finally had my life back. For the first time in what felt like years, I breathed. Ashley had lost. She was out of my life, except for her supervised visits with Mia. The house was mine. The future was mine. I had one, but I knew Ashley. She wasn't the type to take a loss quietly. Still, I tried to move forward. Mia and I settled into a new routine. I took her to school every morning, helped her with homework, tucked her in at night. I was finally getting the time with my daughter that Ashley had tried to take from me. Then, Ashley called. I should have ignored it. But something in me told me to pick up. The second I answered, I knew it was a mistake. Her voice was soft. Almost too soft. "Mike, can we talk?" I leaned against the counter, already on guard. "We are talking," I said flatly. She sighed, like I was the one making things difficult. "Not like this. In person. Can we meet?" I almost laughed. "Meet? After everything?" I kept my voice calm. "What do you want, Ashley?" Silence. Then, she switched tactics. "I miss you." I rolled my eyes. "No, you don't. You miss control." Her breath hitched. "Mike, I'm serious. I've had time to think. I made mistakes, but I still love you." I clenched my jaw. I could hear the lie in her voice. This wasn't about love. It wasn't even about regret. This was about power. She had lost, and now she was grasping at straws. I exhaled. "Ashley, we're done. You made sure of that?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "We don't have to be." I stared at the floor, feeling a strange sense of relief. The old me, the one who still believed in her, would have hesitated. Would have second-guessed, but that man was gone. I shook my head. "Goodbye, Ashley." I hung up, and I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. It started with a text: "Ashley, I just want what's best for Mia. Can we at least co-parent peacefully?" I sighed. Maybe, just maybe, she was actually accepting reality. So I replied, "That's all I want too." I should have known better, because 2 days later, Child Protective Services showed up at my door. I opened the door to find a woman in a gray blazer holding a clipboard. "Mr. Dawson?" I nodded. "I'm with Child Protective Services. We received a report about concerns regarding your daughter's well-being." My stomach dropped. "Ashley." It had to be her. I kept my expression calm. "Come in." The caseworker walked through the house, looking at everything. Mia's room. The kitchen. The fridge. Checking for signs of neglect, abuse, anything she could write down. Mia sat on the couch, watching cartoons, completely oblivious to what was happening. Finally, the caseworker sat across from me at the table. "Mr. Dawson, the report mentioned concerns about your mental health. Your ex-wife claims that your military service has left you emotionally unstable." I saw red. Of course, she did. She couldn't beat me in court, so now she was trying to paint me as a danger to my own daughter. I took a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "I see. And did she provide any evidence?" The caseworker hesitated. "She mentioned past stress-related incidents, but nothing documented." Translation? Ashley was making things up. I gave a short laugh. "I have full custody because a judge deemed me the more stable parent." Does that sound like someone unfit to raise a child? The caseworker didn't answer. Instead, she jotted something down. I leaned forward. You can talk to Mia's teachers. Her doctor. Even my commanding officers. I have nothing to hide. She nodded. We will be conducting interviews. I exhaled. Go ahead. You'll find out the truth. The investigation lasted for days. 4 days of feeling like I was being watched. Judged then, I got the call, the case was closed. No evidence of neglect or emotional instability. Ashley's plan failed. That I should have felt relieved. But instead, I was furious. She had weaponized my past. My service. My trauma, and for what? Just to get revenge. She was sick, and I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't letting this go. She had made her last mistake. It was time to end this for good. Ashley thought she could keep pushing. She lost in court. She lost custody. She tried to paint me as an unfit father, and she failed, but she wasn't done, because when a manipulative person starts to drown, they don't stop fighting. They pull everyone down with them. And her next move, it was the worst one yet. 2 weeks after the CPS case was closed, I was home making dinner with Mia when I heard a knock at the door. I wiped my hands, glanced at the clock. 7:45 p.m. Strange. I opened the door and felt my stomach drop. 2 police officers stood on my porch. Mr. Dawson, one of them asked. I nodded. Yeah. What's this about? The officer sighed. We need you to come down to the station. There's been a report filed against you. My mind raced. A report? Ashley. It had to be her. I exhaled slowly. What's the charge? The second officer shifted uncomfortably. Domestic abuse. I froze. Then, I let out a short laugh, a bitter, disbelieving sound. You're kidding me. But they weren't, and suddenly, everything made sense. Ashley couldn't win in court. She couldn't win through CPS. So now, she was trying to make me look like a violent man, and if she succeeded, I could lose everything. An hour later, I was sitting in a cold, gray interrogation room. A detective walked in and dropped a stack of papers in front of me. Ashley's statement. I skimmed the page, my blood boiling as I read her lies. She claimed I had been physically aggressive during our marriage. She said I had anger issues from my military service, and the worst part? She said she was afraid for Mia's safety. She was setting me up. If I got convicted, even without proof, it could jeopardize my custody. The detective sat down. Mr. Dawson, do you have anything to say? I took a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Yeah, I said. This is a complete fabrication. The detective studied me. You understand that domestic violence charges are serious? I do, I said. And I also know that Ashley is a liar. She cheated on me, tried to take my daughter, and when that didn't work, she reported me to CPS. And when that didn't work, she came up with this. The detective leaned back in his chair. Do you have proof? I nodded. Check the CPS records. Check the custody case. Every single time she's tried to attack me, she's lost. And this? This is just her latest move. They kept me at the station for 3 hours, then, the detective walked back in, holding a file. We ran Ashley's statement through our system, he said. Her credibility is questionable. No kidding, she has a history of false reports, he continued. And based on the evidence, we're not proceeding with charges. I exhaled. I was free to go, but this wasn't over. Ashley had crossed a line, and now, she was finally going to pay for it. The next morning, I called my lawyer. John answered on the second ring. Mike? What's going on? I told him everything, the false charges. The CPS case. The repeated harassment. When I finished, John sighed. All right. It's time to shut her down for good. And that's exactly what we did. Within 24 hours, we filed for a restraining order against Ashley. A motion to terminate her visitation rights completely, legal consequences for filing false police reports. Ashley had been playing games with the system for too long. This time, she wasn't getting away with it. A week later, I walked into the same courtroom where I had won custody of Mia. Ashley sat at the other table, looking pale. For the first time, she wasn't in control. John stood. Your Honor, the defendant has repeatedly attempted to manipulate the legal system. She has filed false CPS reports, false criminal reports, and engaged in harassment. The judge sighed, rubbing his temples. He was tired of her games. After reviewing all the evidence including the police records, the judge made his ruling. Given the pattern of behavior displayed by Mrs. Dawson, I am ruling in favor of the plaintiff. All visitation rights are revoked indefinitely. Furthermore, Mrs. Dawson is subject to a mandatory psychological evaluation before any future custody considerations. Ashley gasped. She looked at me, her face shattered, and for once, I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness, just relief, because she couldn't hurt me anymore. She had finally lost everything. That night, I tucked Mia into bed. She looked up at me and whispered, "Do I have to see Mommy again?" I hesitated, then gently brushed her hair back. "Not for a long time, sweetheart." She smiled. "Good." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Ashley thought she could destroy me. She thought she could lie her way to victory, but in the end, she destroyed herself and I finally had peace. Ashley was gone. No more court battles, no more manipulations. She lost everything. Mia and I finally had peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder, waiting for Ashley's next move. She had no more moves left. Mia was happier than ever. No more tense visits, no more confusion. That I focused on being the best father possible. Ashley? She disappeared. No calls. No texts. Nothing. That it was finally over, and yet, a small part of me couldn't shake the feeling that one day, she'd try to come back. But if she did, I'd be ready. Days turned into weeks. No calls. No texts. No drama. For the first time in years, my life was quiet. And Mia? She was thriving. Her teacher said she was happier and more focused. She wasn't anxious before visitations anymore. She even stopped asking about Ashley. It hit me then. Mia was better off without her, and honestly, so was I. Without Ashley's chaos, I finally had time to focus on me. I went back to the gym. I started reconnecting with old friends, and for the first time in a long time, I started thinking about dating again. But just when I thought Ashley was completely gone from my life, she came back. One night, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. "Ashley, I know I messed up. I just want to talk." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. She was trying to come back, and I had a choice: ignore her, or finally shut the door for good. I stared at Ashley's message, my thumb hovering over the screen. "I know I messed up. I just want to talk." After everything she put me through, the lies, the betrayal, the legal battles, she had the nerve to come back. I could have ignored it. Blocked her. Pretended she didn't exist, but something in me wanted to end this properly. So I replied. "Me, there's nothing left to talk about." Seconds later, she typed back, "Ashley, please. Just meet me one last time." I should have said no, but deep down, I knew this was my chance to shut the door forever. We met at a coffee shop. She looked different. Tired. Older. Like life had finally caught up with her. She gave me a weak smile. "Thanks for coming." I didn't return it. "What do you want, Ashley?" She sighed. I wanted to say I'm sorry." I studied her, trying to see if there was any real regret. Maybe there was, but it didn't matter. "It's too late for that," I said. "You did this to yourself." She swallowed hard. "I know. I don't know who I am without you." There it was. She didn't miss me. She missed control. I leaned back, shaking my head. "You need to figure that out on your own. Mia and we've moved on." Her eyes welled up, but I felt nothing. This was closure. I stood up. "Goodbye, Ashley." She didn't try to stop me. She just sat there, watching as I walked away for good. That night, as I tucked Mia into bed, she looked up at me and smiled. "Daddy, I'm happy." For the first time in years, I could say the same. Ashley was the past and my daughter. My future? That's all that mattered now. Ashley was gone. No more drama. No more manipulation. No more looking over my shoulder. For the first time in years, my life was truly mine. Mia was thriving. No more anxiety, no more confusion, just a happy little girl. She didn't ask about Ashley anymore, and I realized something. She didn't need her, and neither did I. For so long, Ashley's betrayal had defined me, but now I was more than just the guy who got cheated on. I focused on being the best father I could be. I reconnected with friends and family, and for the first time in a long time, I was ready to let someone new in. Ashley was a lesson, Mia was my purpose and my future. It was finally mine to build. Ashley thought she could destroy me, but in the end, she only destroyed herself and me. I came out stronger, because the truth is some losses are actually wins, and walking away from her was the best thing I ever did. Time passed. Months. Then a year. Ashley faded into the background of my life. A distant mistake. A story I no longer cared to tell. Mia and I, we built something better. We laughed more. We lived without tension. We grew stronger together. And as for me, I moved on. One afternoon, I got a text from a random number. I didn't need to guess who it was. Ashley, I heard you're seeing someone new. Happy for you. Hope we can be friends someday. I smirked, deleted the message, and never replied. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I just didn't care anymore, and that was the best revenge of all. One night, as I tucked Mia into bed, she looked up at me and said, "Daddy, you're happy now." I smiled. "Yeah, sweetheart. I am." And for the first time in years, I truly meant it. Ashley was my past, Mia was my future, and my new life was just beginning, the real end.